Welcome everybody to Minchat Chinuch at Schwartz, 1575 Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. We meet every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Those of you who come live can participate in the Pilpul Chaverim and the Dibu Chaverim. And for those of you who can't, we want to thank the good people at TorahAnytime.com for their wonderful work of being meifetz, literally thousands of shiurim, to people all over the world. L'chaim b'anu chachmei Yisrael, we dedicate the schus of tonight's Limud HaTorah, particularly for the refuah shleima of Chaim Yisrael ben Chanet Cyril. That's Rav Belsky, Rosh Yeshiva Torah Das, and to Yosef Shalom and Chaim Usher, that's Rav Al Yoshev, the Pesach Hadar, B'sai Shaykh Al Yisrael. Okay, so tonight we have a double parsha this week, Achim Eis Kedoshim, and I wanted to learn the many mitzvahs in both parshas. I wanted to learn a mitzvah from the parsha, and I picked mitzvah Reish Lamed Beis. It's a mitzvah of, as the Mechaber Chinuch refers to it, Shlei Lahachshel Tam Baderech. Okay, even though the lashon of the pasuk is Lifnei Iver Loisitem Michshel, he calls it a Tam. Shlei Lahachshel Tam Baderech. You should not cause a simple person to stumble. That's the direct quote. B'meshach this evening, some of the points that, depending on how much time allows, that I want to hit as we go through this Loisa, this negative commandment of the Torah, is, first of all, the literal meaning. What happens if I actually take a block of wood or a block of stone and I put it in front of a blind person or a vision impaired person, and I cause them to trip? Is that, it's obviously a rotten, low-down activity. The question is it covered by this law or not? Okay. Shalom, we have a handout over there for you. Okay. All right, so that's one thing I hope to get to. Another thing is that I want to know, obviously, before we even start, we know we have a question if the literal interpretation of the pasuk is covered, but we all know the Rashi, the two prohibited activities, the Chazal Darshan, out of this pasuk is not to give somebody a bad and self-serving suggestion. That's one permutation of this or the prohibition. And another one is not to aid, abet, cause others to sin, to do an aveira. So, obviously, a Jew cannot run a non-kosher restaurant with Jewish patrons. Can't run an Ever Ben Achai restaurant, even if he's in a totally Gentile neighborhood or a totally Gentile clientele. Okay? You cannot serve treifa food to a guest in your house. Can't serve a cheeseburger to a guest. Can you serve a chicken cheeseburger to a guest? Or more precisely, is it the Issa Daraisa of Lifnei Iver Loisitem Michshel if what you're being machshel another person is only an Issa Darabana? Right? It's another question I'd like to hit. Another question is, what happens if, there are several levels of distribution. You can have a producer, you can have a wholesaler, you can have a retailer, and you can have a customer. What happens if you're purveying non-kosher meat to a vegan? Okay, but the vegan may turn around and serve that to a carnivore, to somebody who does eat meat, non-kosher meat. You're allowed to do that. You're not the one who's going to be serving and causing the other person to sin. Your customer is the one who's going to be causing somebody to sin. Okay? Is that Lifnei Iver or not? And does it make a difference if the middleman is a non-Jew or a Jew? Okay? All right, so these are some of the fascinating things that are covered in this mitzvah. Without further ado, let's begin. Mitzvah Reish Lamed Beis on page Reish Chavav of the Minchat Chinuch. All right, so Lo Lahachshel B'nei Yisrael. I'm reading some Chinuch over here again because the Chinuch itself over here impacts on the Lumdus. I'm not, as a general rule, I don't do the parts of the Chinuch where he talks about Misharish HaMitzvah, where he gets into mitzvah philosophy and Tamei mitzvahs, but I do want to read those parts of the Chinuch that impact the conversation of Minchas Chinuch. Okay. Shloi lahachshel tam baderech, that's Mitzvah Reish Lamed Beis. Shloi lahachshel b'nei Yisrael. So you put a box around b'nei Yisrael, because that's limiting. Sounds like it's only a problem if the one you were causing to stumble is a fellow Jew, but not if it's a non-Jew. Shloi lahachshel b'nei Yisrael losses lem eitz hara, to give them a bad piece of advice. Aval niyasher oisam k'shiyishu la'etz. We should straighten them out. When a person asks me for a suggestion, I have to give him the best possible advice that I can. Okay, we're talking about integrity over here. We're talking about dealing in good faith. Could you mess somebody up? Could you do your due diligence? You did your research. You understand. You have a better understanding of the Indian, whatever it is that the Shaylites is coming to ask you about, a real estate deal, another kind of investment, shidduch, agriculture in the old days. And you have a Mevinus, but you were wrong. It turned out that the Eitzah you gave him flopped. That's not the Avera. This is not an Avera that, so to speak, you can be, or at least not an iteration of the Avera, that you can be over b'shoigig. Yeah. Oh, you see, b'shoigig, it was an accident. I didn't mean to mess the guy up. I told him to plant rutabagas this season in his field. And how was I supposed to know that the 22-year rutabaga cicada was going to, according to my cheshbon, it wasn't due for another 2 years. And they came early. Right? So, that's not the Avera. If I gave it my best shot when I gave the Eitzah, if I was dealing in good faith, that's not the Avera. Shenemar, how do I know that I shouldn't be machshol, caused to stumble Judas way? You'll notice that the Mechaber of the Sefer Chinuch does not ever talk about the Pshuta Shel Mikra. He doesn't say, look, first of all, Avad is the Pshuta Shel Mikra. You put down a banana peel and somebody slips on it, and the guy didn't see you putting down a banana peel, you're over on Lufnei Yifloi. Doesn't say that. He goes right away to the drash of Chazal that this includes, metaphorically speaking. Yeah? If I'm blind about a certain topic, and you're more enlightened than me, and you give me the bad eitzah is a metaphoric stumbling block. So he jumps straight to the metaphor. V'loshen safra, lifnei suma, bidavar, v'yanaitel mucha eitzah, al titul eitzah sheina agenesle. If somebody is blind about a certain topic, and he's taking a piece of advice from you, do not give him a piece of advice that's not fitting for him. This is famous, we notice from the Rashi, but the Makar is a Safra. It sounds like it's not enough that you're dealing in bad faith, that you're trying to mess the guy up, you're also gaining. It's self-serving. You tell the guy a really bad piece of business advice, sell good, stable, fertile agricultural real estate, buy a short-term fix, a donkey, and in the meantime you manipulate things that in the end the piece of land ends up with your name on the deed. Right? So again, it's sugyas. Is it enough just to mess the other guy up? Does it have to be self-serving advice? Whatever. Sugyas, we'll see. Move on, the next underline. This love of not putting a stumbling block down also includes helping anyone who's going to be over Avera. Now here, without saying Mishar Shei Mitzvah, he's offering a philosophical reason for the mitzvah, which I really don't begin to understand. Basically what he's saying is, the famous Chazal, that Kivit Shavar, the Maver V'Shanaba, Nas like a Heter. We only have the luxury of a taboo when we're first-time offenders. The first time, before you do an Avera, so then you have a sense of taboo. Once you do it, and you do it a second time, then it's already, I have a license to do this. This is forbidden. It's a mil de chassidus. It's a chumrah. Chumrah, you have to be a chinuch to keep this isser. You don't have to be a chinuch. You just have to be a law-abiding citizen. But that's the sense that you get. And the Welt says over from Rasul Salante that once you do it a third time, now it becomes a mitzvah. Now it becomes a heter. Now it becomes already a holy cause. Everybody has to do it. What? You mean I'm not a paragon of virtue and of morality and of ethics? If I'm doing it, it must be the right thing to do. At any rate, this is what he's saying. It's like you open the gateway for him. by you facilitating the guy's first time offense, maybe to me, this piece of chinuch, and to the best of my knowledge, the Minchas Chinuch does not address this point. To me, this is a pella. And what's wrong with the one Avera the first time? What can you say? The time of the mitzvah is you caused another person to sin. What do I care that he's going to be a self-starter? You want to dingzich with his psychology. You don't want to dingzich with his psychology. He'll be a self-starter the next time. He'll do it numerous times. Maybe it's true, but why do you have to go so far? What's wrong with the fact that you got him to do an Avera this time? What do I care if he'll be a repeat offender? Any svaras? Any ideas on what the chinuch means over here?
I think the person who's doing the Avera is going to do it anyway. But you're assisting him, then gives him the permission to do it the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. I think that the chinuch is talking here about a case, not where you're feeding somebody chazer and the person doesn't know that he's eating chazer.
Okay.
Or you're causing him to do an Avera. The person wants to eat chazer, and somehow you are assisting him and telling him it's not such an Avera, it's a darabanan, it's a whatever. So that's why he takes it to the second and the third degree. Because this person was going to do this sin anyway. But you're assisting him, then allows him to view it as, it's permissible. Look, my friend even told me I could do it. That's why he's taking it to this.
Yeah, but my friend didn't do it himself. This guy was already holding by eating it b'mezid. First of all, how do you know that b'mezid is a summa b'davar? Both of these iterations of Avera, either giving somebody a bad eitzah or being machshel another person in Avera, is called a summa. They're blind about something, right? Is a mezid blind? Maybe. I mean, it's a debatable point. I can certainly see that the simplest definition of a summa in a metaphoric sense when you're talking about an Avera is he's an Aimer, he doesn't know he's dealing with Issa. All right? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying the Lifnei doesn't. Okay. All right, let's wait. Okay, I hear what you're saying. It's a possibility. In other words, else the Etzem Avera, if he's amazing, then he's going to do it anyway. So what did I really do wrong? This Avera was going to get done anyway. But by participating, you're saying you're accelerating the loss of the sense of taboo. It's for the future Averas when you won't be around, but in a certain sense you were a silent partner for the guy.
Maybe the person wasn't exactly amazed. Maybe the person knew this isn't quite, doesn't have a hechsher, it looks a little bit strange, maybe it's not really kosher, and he asked his buddy, do you think I can eat it? And the buddy said, yeah, eat it, what's the problem?
All right. The two classic cases that Chazal always bring for this kind of Lifnei Michshel is giving Ever Menachai to a non-Jew or giving a cup of wine to a Nazir. Yeah. Okay, we'll see about Shaygig and Amazing again, hopefully if time allows. We'll see in a minute. Okay. Okay, besides the fact that there are individual Isurim in the Torah, separate law in the Torah, not to either lend or borrow on ribbis, since it takes two to tango, for every interest-bearing loan, there must be a borrower and there must be a lender, and both of those activities are prohibited. So that it comes out that when there is a ribbis transaction, besides that some Avera, that's some Isser of ribbis that's going on, there's also a Lifnei Iver going on. Because the lender, I do my own Avera that I borrowed by ribbis, I'm over on Lifnei Iver that I caused the lender to lend on ribbis. The lender. I do my own Avera that I lent on ribbis, being over on Lifnei Iver, I caused the borrower to borrow on ribbis. Okay, let's pause for a minute and let's learn some Minchas Chinuch over here. Okay, taking it from the top Rabbi and Kalm. Shalom Hashal Bnei Yisrael. Avaniyasha L'chayra Eini Maven Kavanas Rav Mechaber Shekos Bnei Yisrael. Right, I underlined it over here. I don't understand why the Mechaber of the Sefer Chinuch is limiting it to being Machshel Bnei Yisrael. Halagam Goy Halav L'Lifnei Iver K'Mavur Achaz Abedvarv. He himself, the Sefer Chinuch himself, is going to say that he can't be Machshel a guy and an Aver. Basically, if you ever learned Masechtas Avodah Zarah, the first 7, 8, 10 blot of Masechtas Avodah Zarah is all about this issue of Lifnei Iver L'Sit Michshel as it applies to guys. Lifnei Edayan, how much before a chaga, an idolatrous holiday, Are you allowed to deal in certain things that they may end up using as tekrayvus avodah zarah, as things that they worship the avodah zarah with? So it's clear. Whatever is usher for the guy to do, whatever his 7 mitzvahs ben nayach are, yeah, you are not allowed to cause them to be nichshel in that either. V'shas mefurshu b'avodah zarah v'avim beis v'kam makayim is the lo yeshet evim menachai leven nayach. You're not allowed to stretch out. You're not allowed to serve. You can't serve a Jew a cheeseburger, or pork, or ham, or any of our dietary code. Their dietary code consists of one thing, evim menachai. You can't be meishet that to them either. You can't stretch out your hand and serve them. Evim menachai. Below Rambam Perek Beis Mertzech Lech Yudalad Kol Mach Shaliver Lo Kosav Davki Yisrael. The Rambam doesn't get so specific like the Sefer Chinuch. He's saying the Rambam is better off. The Rambam's okay. You know, the vagueness of the Rambam's lashon tolerates. You could say that, like the Gemara seemed to indicate, that Lifnei Iver L'Sit Michshel applies equally whether the victim is a Jew or whether the victim is a non-Jew. Udlachalek v'loimer, the davka b'inyan dvar iser asal hachshel v'anayach. Okay, here's an attempt at teretz. You have a Gemara, Lifnei Dayan, you're not allowed to cause a guy to worship avodah zarah. You're not allowed to cause a guy to eat evim menachai. You can't cause a guy to be over on the iser etzicha, right? But to give him bad business advice, to give him self-serving business advice, what's wrong with that? Especially self-serving is very good. Because little scintilla of Gezalakim over there. Yeah, he's losing, but I'm gaining and I'm Jewish, so maybe it should be okay. So he says that's not a svara. To say that you're a business advisor, you're a stockbroker, right? An inverted affinity scheme, an inverted Ponzi scheme. To all of your Jewish clients, you're giving the straight dope, you're giving the good advice. And to all of your Italian and Irish clients, you're giving bad business advice. Right? That's not covered by Lifnei Iver L'Sit Michshel. That's what, if you're medayik in the lashon of the chinuch, you can be machalik that way. Right? He says, B'nai Yisrael lo tzlem eitzara, and later when he's going to talk about evim menachai, okay, those are isurim. But those are two different things that we learn out of the metaphoric michshel. One michshel is davera, and one michshel is the bad eitzah. So maybe the bad eitzah that you could give to a non-Jew. Minchat says that's a non-starter. That's not a good mahalach. It's not a good chiluk. Ulachalek v'lomer the davka b'inyan dvar iser. Also lahachshel levanayach. Avaloi l'inyan eitzah. Only when it comes to things that are forbidden, you can't be machshel benayach. But when it comes to an eitzah, menolan davar zeh. Where do you get the right to make such a chiluk? Kiven da'akra kai gam al benayach. Listen, both of these are derived from the same pasuk. How are you going to make that split? Mashach. If the pasuk applies only to Jews, you should be able to serve a ben nayach evim menachai. If it doesn't apply, if it's not exclusive to Jews, Jewish victims, that is to say, then you ought to not be allowed to give a ben nayach a bad eitzah either. V'avshem mavur b'bavasu da'olam l'alv pasuk around kind of looked us over. The osel lahasi eitzah taiva l'gai. Now the other thing you can't do either. There might be an issur involved in giving them an eitzah taiva. It's a permutation of lois achananim. You can't give them free gifts for nothing. I'm not talking right now about darkei shalom or how. Remember, this class is not a halach l'maisel class. Don't try this at home, kids. We're not talking about how a Jew navigates in Golus in a Western democracy. Okay, but in the pure halacha of lois achananim, right? So the Gemara Bava Basra says you can't give an eitzah taiva to a guy either. Mikol makam davka lasi eitzah taiva aser. You say, oh, I want to go for the Mishra Sadin. I learned the Gemara that says I can't give him a good piece of advice. So I'll be machmer and I'll give him a bad piece of advice. Can't do that either. Mikol makam davka lasi eitzah taiva aser. So what am I to do? Yeah? I got the Yamsuf in front of me. I got the Egyptian cavalry behind me. What am I supposed to do? How do I get out of this jam? Right? To give him an eitzah taiva, that's loisachanim. To give him an eitzah ra, that's lifnei iver. So what do I give him? I'm sorry, it's not my area of expertise. What do you mean it's not your area of expertise? Yeah, you have a stockbroker out there on your shingle. Oh, that was my neighbor. I'm going to remove it. Whatever. you find some way of wiggling out of it. You don't give the eitzah. That's all. But he's saying to say a svara that because there may be some isser attached to giving a positive eitzah, that therefore I should jump to the opposite conclusion and say it's mutter to give a bad eitzah. No.
So a Jewish lawyer can't have clients?
Pardon me?
A Jewish lawyer, stockbroker, accountant, doctor cannot have clients. He's giving them eitzah.
I gave you my caveat. I didn't say there's not a halacha l'maisa how we navigate in a Western democracy and we're in gullus and you're damn tekifa and so on and so forth. Whatever. I mean, the point is, nishta zay pashut. That's all. Yeah, there might be an element of issa there. A lot of things, till you learn the sugyas, until you learn the rishonim in depth, seem like natural. Who would ever begin to think that it's asur? And there can be elements of issa. And there was a landmark tshuva written by Moshe zt'zl in the 50s. If you're allowed to buy life insurance, what could possibly be wrong with life insurance? I don't know. I don't think it's a 3-line tshuva. I think he took it as a serious shiloh and it's complicated. He comes out with some stuff. You're allowed to do it. You should do it. You must do it. But it's not so pashut. Okay. At any rate. And besides, if you have a lawyering or a CPA in Gemach, that's one thing. Once there's remuneration involved, I don't know if there's any issues with loy sachar name altogether. All right, you're a professional. There's not personal. There's business. That could be a whole different ball of wax. Okay. Mikol malkum davka l'si eitz tova aser el l'salak atzmai me'etzer. Aval I see eitzer ra gam l'goy aser. But to give somebody a bad piece of advice would be also even to a guy. The any idea menolay la'arav ha'mechaber davar zeh. Now I have to tell you that before I decided on Lifnei Iver, I was toying with the idea that tonight we should do one of the other Ben Am L'Chaverei mitzvahs that are in this week's parsha. Gezel, Oishek, Geneva, they're all in this week's parsha. There are a lot of mitzvahs, and especially in Kedoshim. And one of the big bomb sugyas in Gezel is the issue of Gezel Akum. Gezel Akum is mutter, Gezel Akum is aser. If it's aser, it's aser min atayra, it's aser min rabbanan. When is it aser? When is it mutter? Big sugya. Anyway, listen to this. Well, the Chayot Tzarachi in Divrei HaMashal, B'yam Shel Shalayim Bavakam Perek Yud Tzimchav, is a famous mashal. Gabi Gezel guy. Shekosev, okay, the Rambam Shita is that Gezel Akum is aser min atayra. Okay? So, there are a lot of problems, a lot of kashas that are raised on that Rambam. But here's the Mashal's kasha. Okay? How could you say that Gezel Akum is aser min atayra when the audience of the Torah is an exclusively Jewish audience? Asher bachar banim mikol ha'amim v'n'lasa lanu es Torah. Okay? The derivation of Zayim Mitzvah Benayach, that's a separate issue. But Torah Tziva lanu Moshe, Torah is given to Jews. It's a Jewish audience. So presumably, when the Torah says loy sigzo, yeah, we're talking about one Jew shouldn't steal from another Jew. Meicha Taisa, without a mafurish pasuk in the Torah saying to include Goyim, why should I presume that Goyim are included? This is the Mashal's question on the Rambam Shita. Shver Mashal, not such a Shver Rambam, a Shver Mashal. It's like the Minchas Chinuch. L'chayt tzarchi in Divrei Mashal, Gabi Gezel Goy, shekos of that Torah Yisrael nitno loy v'noyach, v'ayim b'tshuvas Chacham Tzvi. I'm going to read you soon in a minute the passage of Chacham Tzvi, but just for the continuity, let me finish the paragraph here. Halay ra'inu da Torah asra lite michshol af lev'noyach. What kind of a kasha is that? Torah is given to a Jewish audience. That means none of the Yisurim of the Torah count if the victim is non-Jewish. What are you going to do with this? Sugya is all over Shas. You can't sell murder weapons to Goyim. You can't get them involved in their Avodah Zarah. You can't be Mashal Mudei Shasish. You can't be Mashal Mudei Nachai. What happened to the Mashal's vaunted Svara? What do you mean? The Torah is given to a Jewish audience. The victims have to be Jewish too. What do you do with this? And even the Chinuch, who's sharing his own right, who says that the Isser of giving a bad Eitzah seems to be only limited to Jews, but the Chinuch himself is Maida. That certainly when it comes to Yimach Shalem and Isurim, so Gaisha victims are on the same footing as Jewish victims. What happened to the Marshal Svar? Okay, so I want to. There's a tshuva from the Chacham Tzvi. I'm just going to read you a few lines. Okay? Zokter Azai. There's tshuva Chavav and tshuva's Chacham Tzvi. Uma inyan da Torah Yisrael nitna. What do I care that the Torah was given? V'loy l'nachum. It was not given to the Nachum. Uma ze kushel aram. How does this make the Ram shver? Ata mishum losa did who? Do you think that it has anything to do when there are Yisurim in the Torah? When there are prohibitions in the Torah? Yeah? Is the prohibition addressed to the victims? Okay? Do you think that Alam, the Nagres Alam will say, there's an Isser in the Torah not to be victimized through theft. When it says like zt'zl in the Torah, it means don't be a patsy. Don't make sure you have your wallet in your rear pocket. Make sure it's zippered on top. Ridiculous. It's not. It's not addressed to the victim. Mishum Losset who has anything to do with them, with the Gaisha victims. The law of zt'zl. It was it's addressed to a Jewish audience. It's saying to Jews, don't steal. From who? I don't care from who. You don't steal. It has to do with you. V'chi Aramim Savur Shanochri Nitztavish Le'aniach Yisrael L'Gozlei Lignam Mimenu. That's the law of the Torah. Hey, you guy, Johnny, make sure that Jewish swindler doesn't rip you off. That's what zt'zl and zt'zl means. The Marshal really entertained such a havamina because the Torah was nitli Yisrael. The Torah is addressing itself to the aggressor is not even the right word, to the transgressors, right? To the mitzvah doers, to the precept commanders, and to the transgressors. Do this, don't do that. What does it have to do with who the victim is? And then he goes on to say, I'll read and translate in a minute. He talks about how he wanders a little bit again into mitzvah philosophy, and we learned, I think the first or the second shir over here, because I want to dafka do that. The etzem le'sishbru by the mitzvah of not breaking the bone in the Korban Pesach. That's the first place in the Torah where the Chinuch articulates the famous aside. Ha'adam nifel kafipu loisav. We become what we do. You're affected by your affectations. Yeah, don't want you, if you're ben chayrin, if you're leaving slavery and you're leaving poverty, we don't want you to behave like a guy who's got to grovel, through the bones to get a little extra nutrition. You're a prince now. You're hungry, you'll have another slice of meat. You don't need to break the bones to suck the marrow. Okay, so it says like this: the mitzvahs of the Torah were given that we should be menschlich, that we should be fine people, that we shouldn't do ma'asim mechuram. And he brings a very beautiful word. Forget about now the issue of the guy and the Jew. Yeah, the din is like zt'zl includes, and even if you steal it with the idea that you're going to give it right back, just the costs are. You're just doing it as what we would call a prank. Yeah, show up to somebody with a real gun, with a fake gun, give me money, and 10 minutes later you give it back to them. Yeah, oh, that look on your face was priceless. That's also a ma'aseh mechur. Right? Gemara says that a person, a ganef, shouldn't be ganef because he wants to be mechayev himself and careful. Yeah, a guy, a cockeyed tzaddik could say like this: there's an oni over there. Yeah, if matching funds, matching donation, right? If I just write him a check for $100, I'll only have a check for $100. Yeah, if I rip off from him $100, I'll have $200, and I'll be b'kovedik, right? He'll come and take me to his entire. It won't look like a handout. What a great way to give tzedakah. Robin Hood, we're not interested. The Maisa Gneva makes you another mechur, makes you into a ganef. Okay? You shouldn't become a ganef through a Maisa Gneva. And then he goes on to say like this. It's a beautiful shlichel here in the Chacham Tzvi. V'loyoid. El shemischaven l'toyves ha-nignav. Like I said, this guy's a kevel. It calls in the stavinu anach shlo hargel atzmeinu lignav. We shouldn't get into that habit, even a one-time offender. It does something to you. Kvar metzinu, besides which, he says, Kvar metzinu shnei lavim mufurashim b'gayim. What's the marshal going to do with this? Two lavim that clearly where the victim is a guy. Lois Samer Bo, Machal Karana, it says it by the Shivcha Knainis, right? Ukashatzaran al Arei HaNachrim, in the laws of war, when you lay siege to a Gaisha town, Nitztavinu L'Haniach Ruach Achas Uli Matzar, one of the directions, one of the approaches to the city has to not be besieged, has to be open. L'chol mi sheyitzli malat al nafshay, k'bash kaz aram zal bilchas malachim. What do we care? It's not a Jewish city. Yeah, it will be near any dachas, Kevin McLaren, to make war on any dachas. They're Jews, maybe you have to leave one ruach open. But it's Goyim, they're not the audience that Torah was addressed to. It doesn't matter. We become achzarim if we do unnecessary wars of annihilation. If we don't play by the rules of warfare, so we become achzarim. Okay? And here clearly, it's mefurish, it's explicit, that the victims in this case are Goyim. What happened to the Sfarad Marshal, the guy Schwartz? So this is what the Minchas Chinuch means. Here's another lava the Torah, lifnei evil lesit mechshel, and it's mefurish that if the victims are Goy. Okay, as usual, I was a little bit too wordy. We'll see if I was asking the question about the middleman, but I just want to show you something very interesting over here. Ramardcha raised the issue of Shaygig and Mezel. Let's take a look at this. So it's a bam chiddush that the Minchas Chinuch is saying, but l'chayr it's pashut. I mean, you have to learn like what he says. Turn to page Reish Chaf Zayin. Also at the top right hand column. Okay. So first, before we read it inside, let me read you halacha in the Rambam. There's a Rambam, Perik Yud halacha Aleph of Hilchas Malachim, where he goes through, the Zaymitz Ben Nayach. It says like this: Ben Nayach sheshagag b'achas b'mitzvaysav pata miklum. By Jews, there's a concept. Al chet shechadam fanecha b'anis v'ratzim b'shaygu v'meizer. Shaygig needs a kapara, needs to be addressed. A shaygig in Ritzicha goes to an miklat. A shaygig in a karis has to bring a karmachatas. Shaygig doesn't mean you're off scot-free. It was an accident, and let's move on. All right? I need closure, it's time to move on. It doesn't work that way. But by a guy it is. Chutz miratzeach b'shgaga, except if a guy kills by accident, shim harga gayal adam and a naragalav. The gayal adam kills him, he's not narag. It's not clear to me. It's talking about a Jewish gayal adam, a Gayish gayal adam. Vein lo yim miklat, doesn't have the whole concept of a miklat. Aval batei dinei and emem yisim haisei. But a bezdin is not going to say, it's involuntary manslaughter, you've got to sit for 10 years. No such thing. You don't kill him. I mean, I can't say involuntary manslaughter, you wouldn't sit for a few years, because maybe that goes into dinim. Okay? But the concept of shaygig, what the Rambam's trying to bring out is, except for Ritzicha, the concept of one of the Zayin mitzvahs, Ben Nayach, b'shaygig, does not exist. I'll read the rest a little later. Take a look at this Minchas Chinuch now. So, what happens if the guy doesn't realize that this is Eiver Menachai? Yeah? The guy doesn't realize that the woman of easy virtue that you're about to introduce him to, is already a married woman. Is that also Lifnei Evil Eisit Mechshel? What a victim is a guy. If the victim will be a Jew, of course, this will make a difference. If the Jew is eating Chaylev B'Shaygig or B'Meizit, maybe it does make a difference, but not the difference he's about to say here. The gam nearly pashet. The hodim I should have been a chalav and nayach v'chein shar davar asal guy diver alef naiver hainu davke magay yedei shu ever menachai. It's only if he knows it's ever menachai. Or shar iser daitz agay iser, or something else that the guy knows is iser. V'im kain hu ever alef naiver. Then the Jew who's serving him the ever menachai was ever alef naiver. Avolim agay eni yedei klal imu ever menachai. Then a guy is a klal, the hohu shaygig gomer, ve'ena machshilei klal. He's a complete shaygig, and you're not being machshil him. He didn't do anything usher. That whole category of prohibition does not exist by goyim. By us we have eines, mezid, rotzen, shaygig, mered, all kinds of shadings of levels of awareness and levels of kavana, right? But a guy, once it's a shaygig, it's completely mutter. Imu Ever Menachai. Then a guy says a klal. Dahu Shagi Gomer. Then a Machshil klal. Kamavur Baram Pegid Mamlach Malach Aleph. Like I just read for you. Aina Iver. HaYisrael Lifnei Iver. So it's Pasha to me, says the Minchas Chinuch. Then in a case like that, at least like the Rambam, the Jew would not be over on Lifnei Iver. Like Yisrael Shu Shagi Gasa Lit Mishum Lois Achilum Av Shu Shagi. There's the Isser of Lois Achilum. Now I'm not clear if he means it's still Lifnei Iver, or there's a separate thing that we have to be mafresh him me'isser. Av Lagaishu Shagi Gomer Muta Lit Ladaiti Fu Pashut. A guy knows he has Ever Menachai in his hand, right? He's got a friend, a servant, a guy, right? It's to his advantage not to serve him the kosher meat or not to serve him even the non-kosher meat, but it's non-Ever Menachai meat. He'll save a little money if he serves him the Ever Menachai meat. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. If he doesn't know about it, you can give it to him. Now, I was giving you a hard time before. I'm asking you a question. Who's a bigger Iver, a Mezid or a Shaygig? I would have thought a Shaygig is a bigger Iver. And yet he's saying that at least insofar as Gaisha victims are concerned, when the Torah says, Lifnei Iver Leisit Michshel, it's talking dafka about a Mezid. Yeah? So the same way that he said before, that in one pasuk you can't be mechalik between giving a bad eitzah or being machshel somebody in an isser, right? I would tend to think that in one pasuk you can't be mechalik on what the definition of an iver is. If by a guy an iver could include a mezid, then by a Jew an iver could be mezid also. He's still called an iver bedover. An iver bedover. Why? Because if you Yetzirah has your Azayin Zak, has you so deluded into thinking it's okay to do this, or you're going to get away with it, or whatever the Pita Yetzer is, you're blind. You haven't seen the light. You don't. A person who sees clearly knows that this is prohibited and will not do it. So even a mezid could be an even. Now, I spoke at the beginning of the class. What happens with a chicken cheeseburger? Okay, can anyone think of why should it make any difference? I'm talking about a Jewish victim. Can you serve a Jewish victim a chicken cheeseburger? And I'm saying b'shaygig. He doesn't know what it is. He thinks either the meat is tofu or the slice of cheese is tofudi, right? He doesn't know there's basa b'chalav. Right? Does it make any difference if you give a guy a beef cheeseburger, a Jewish victim, or a chicken cheeseburger? Now the obvious difference is one's a daraisa and one's a dorbanan. Right? Midaraisa, chicken is not basa. You can mix chicken, any fowl, with milchiks. Right? So it's an issa darabanan, and it's b'shaygig. The Jewish victim thinks that there's kosher. Right? He doesn't know what it is that you're serving him. He's not an imamuti. He's not somebody who's going around thinking, oh, the Torah only said you shouldn't see a kid in its mother's milk. Anything short of that is fine. He knows about basa b'chalav. He knows about 2 sets of dishes in his kitchen. He doesn't realize that what you're giving him is basically, you're trying to pull the wool over his eyes, mamish like this case. You're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of a Geisha victim about Ever Menachai. Does it make any difference if it's an Issa D'Oraisa or an Issa D'Orbanan? Can anyone think of a difference? I'm not really not being fair because there's a piece of information I'm leaving out. What?
What's the punishment for being over D'Orbanan?
What's the punishment for being over D'Orbanan? So b'meizid there's something called makas mardus. Right? B'shaygig, what's the punishment? Well, there's obviously no such thing as a lav sheish b'karis on a D'Orbanan. There could be gedarim that the D'Orbanan made around the Surei karis, but they're not karis themselves. So dam, yeah, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. If I ate dam, I had to bring a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash if I did it b'shaygig, right? If I didn't salt or soak my meat, and through that I had a kazayas dam b'chdei chilus pras, I don't have to bring a carbon. The dam that they're talking about, that dam is all the surah d'Orbanan. The dam that's also in the Torah is the dam that comes out of the carotid arteries that shoots out, while the animal's dying. That's the dam that's also in the Torah. So here's the issue. Yeah, if I'm over an issa d'Orbanan b'shaygig, did I do anything wrong? When I clap al chet and imkip al chet shechon fanacha, does the shaygig over there include Yisurim D'Orbanan or not? So there's a hafladika shita of the Nesivos HaMishpat. The Nesivos writes of an art, not everyone agrees with him. The Nesivos writes of an art that an Issa D'Rabbanan B'Shaygig is nothing wrong. You don't need a kapara, you don't need to do tshuva for it. Why? What? But here's the chap with the grubber finger. What's the svar? What is the Minchas Chinuch being mechadish over here? So it's pashut svar. That if the quote unquote victim, the Iver B'davar, is not stumbling, in fact, he's not doing anything wrong because of your not volunteering certain information. There's certain data about this meat, you're not letting him know that it's Evim Nachai, right? But I just read your Rambam, yeah, that B'nai Noach don't have the concept of shaykik. There's no such thing as an Avera b'shaykik by them, right? So you weren't machshel lever. You didn't cause him to stumble. He ended up not doing anything wrong. By you keeping your peace, by you withholding information from him, right? You could have warned him. You could have said, hey, stop, that's Evim Nachai. You didn't. That itself removes the Yisr quality of it. So I want to be Madame Milsa and Milsa. According to this, if you go with the Nesivos HaMishpat Shita, then an Issa D'Rabban B'Shaygig it's nothing, and I'll explain to you what's in a minute. Yeah. So I think it would come out from this Minchas Chinuch that if you serve the Jew a chicken cheeseburger and didn't tell him that it was a genuine chicken and genuine cheese, you didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Mamela, you didn't do anything wrong. Now, what does that mean that he didn't do anything wrong? So the Nesiva says that's Gebayt on the Ramban. The Ramban says there's a scintilla, there's a veneer, there's an element of a daraisa to every Yisur D'Rabbanan. Right? Because why must we keep Yisurim D'Rabbanan? Okay, why can't we ride a horse on Shabbos? Why can't we move muktzah? Yeah, why can't we eat dam? That's not dam atamtzis. Why can't we do any of these things? Because it's a part of the Torah that says K'chol asher yerucha, l'sosim adav asher yerucha yamun smile. There's assays, there's lois assays, right? But basically, Shad is the authority of the Rabbanan, the Chachmi Yisrael, to legislate and to add siyagim and takanas to the Torah derives, Kaviyachol, it's the divine right of kings, the divine right of rabbis. Yeah? Kaviyachol, the Eibush allowed the Rabbanan, yeah, to embellish, to add on, to expand the Yisurim or the mitzvahs of the Torah. Right? So, but here's the difference. An Issa D'Oraisa is something intrinsically evil. Yeah? It works the other way. Hashem prohibited it to you because He's the creator of heaven and earth, and these two things mix. A Jewish neshama / digestive system and basa b'cholov, that's bad. That's bad and bad. Yeah? Like a parent who doesn't want their little kid to stick a bobby pin into an electrical socket. He said, don't do that. You don't stick electrical pins into sockets. Right? But whether the parent warns the child or not, you stick a pin into an electrical socket, you're going to get a shock. Right? You drink poison out of a bottle, you're going to need to get your stomach pumped. Right? That's how the Yisurim of the Torah work. Yeah? The be'etzim forbidden, the be'etzim something bad, and that's the whole idea. Why shaygig can also need a tikkun, shaygig can need a kapara, shaygig can need a tikkun. Besides, as far the other Rishonim say that every shaygig comes from some kind of a carelessness. That you wouldn't have been shaygig in this Isser if you really took the Isser 100% seriously. Right? But there's also a svar that said that shaygig needs a tikkun, shaygig needs a kapara, because the thing is be'etzim bad for you. Whether or not the dal mahacha, forget about for a moment the prohibition of the thing, it's just bad for you. Right? Mashenka, that's not true of Yisurim D'Rabbanan. We sometimes forget because so much of our halachic practice are the Rabbanans, and Baruch Hashem, we have a healthy attitude of the importance of keeping the Rabbanans, yeah, that we sometimes forget, but they're only siyagim. After all is said and done, only is a bad word. I sound like a cow when I say that, right? But there's be'etzim intrinsically, there's nothing wrong with horseback riding on Shabbos. Oh, gefelach, it's not Shabbosdik, such a non-Shabbosdik activity. Playing a musical instrument. Nothing be'etzim wrong. What are you talking about? Ugh, Tom Shabbos, a guy pulls out a clarinet and starts playing Shabbos afternoon. Oh, they only did it in the base of Mikdash, that's all. Very not Shabbosdik. We forget sometimes, right? There's nothing intrinsically bad about it. What's bad about it is you're in subordination. Yeah? You're a chutzpahnik. You're not listening to the rabbis. You're not listening to the authorities. Dal mahach that, if you subtract that, if there's no insubordination involved, then there's nothing. Nothing at all. That's the Nesivus as far. Nesivus says that a shaygig, the rabbanim, nothing wrong. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm a mutter. You never bothered to learn Hilchos Muktzah. You never bothered to learn, Hilchos Basa B'chol with the chicken cheeseburgers at Takasser. I'm not talking about that right now, and I'm a mutter. But a guy knows what's what. He knows what the Yisur and the Rabbanan are, but he just didn't realize that this thing is an Yisur and the Rabbanan. He's a shaykh on it. So Nesivus says, again, there are chalkam, but there is such a svar. I want to be mechadish, maybe, efshekem and zogen. Light the shita of the Nesivus, that the same way the Minchas Chinuch says, that if you machshel a guy, b'shaygig, you want over on lifnei iver? Yeah? As devious and as duplicitous as this sounds, but if you're machshel a yid and an Yisur the Rabbanan, there might be the issue again. You have to be mafresh a person misura, but to be over this Issa deraisa of lifnei evil is eating mishul, I'm not 100% convinced. Could be like the Nesivus, and like what the Minchas Chinuch is saying, it wouldn't be that Issa deraisa. Okay, take a look on the left-hand column at the top. No, not there. Where was this? Hold on. Take a look in, that's not the handout. Do you have a handout for him? That's a separate sefer. That's a Chansui. There's one over there at the end of the table, right there. Okay. Take a look on Amud Reish Chav Zayin. It's the second side of the page, I think. Okay, where it says Dalin and Hay, in the middle of the left-hand column. V'hukayver al-mitzvah melech ve'en laikan olav. Okay, so this is time the Chinuch says that there's no malchus for lifnei iver, item mishal melech, perak dal, memal v'loiva, halacha beis, barichas l'in ribbis. V'hine. We said before that every malva and loiva b'ribbis is also being over on lifnei iver, l'sit mishal. Right? So you get malchus, you get two sets of malchus, whatever. It's a long shmooze over there. But that's what the Chinuch says. You wouldn't get malchus for lifnei iver, l'sit mishal. V'chein mediv Ram nira, the pasuk hazeh lifnei iver, yotze legamrei mipshuta. If you look at the Rambam, and you look, the Mefurish is the Mefurish absence. The fact that the Chinuch doesn't start off by saying the straightforward iteration of the law. The Torah said, don't put stumbling blocks before the blind. So if I take a stone and I put it in front of a vision impaired individual, I was over the answer. The Chinuch doesn't say it, and the Rambam doesn't say it either. The Nosan Michshol Mamish Evan Lifnei Iver and Iver. You're a rotten guy. You shouldn't have done it. Certainly not the spirit of the law, right? But this is a pasuk that's legamri loy lefi pshuta. Kedira medivrei Rabbi tchilas dvarav, like it seems also from the Sefer Chinuch, from the beginning where he says, v'chein mimasha kosav she'en by ma'isa, and what he calls it that's a lav she'en by ma'isa. V'imzeh gamken nichla b'lav. If this is also included in the lav, hariyesh by ma'isa. And look, you could say, well, a dibur is not a ma'isa. Yeah, you give a bad eitzah, you just made a bad dibur, right? You put something down in front of somebody who was going to get it anyway, maybe that's not a ma'isa, right? But if I stick out my leg and somebody trips over it, how can that not be a ma'isa? Fine, so let's read on a little bit what he says over here. All right. Krakasafti kama pa'amim. Yeah, the Minchas Chinuch says, I've said to your side about this idea of that a lav she'en by ma'isa ain't like an olive. So I've written a couple of times. Mitzvah Yud Aleph Eischaf V'Oid Shem Shar Melech. Skip the brackets. The imdavar is that ef shalav b'li ma'isa havi ma'isa v'loiken. That when we say that a lav she'en by ma'isa ain't like an olive, it means, or rather, the converse is that the only time that you get malchus for a lav is if the only way to be over this kind of a lav is with a ma'isa. As long as there's one kind of a iteration or version of the isser that can be done passively or it can be done with speech and without a ma'isa, so already you're not over on it, right? So the mere fact that you don't get malchus for lifnei iver l'sit mishul doesn't automatically preclude that if you put down a stumbling block in front of a blind man, that's not the isser. Could be it is isser and you wouldn't get malchus for it, Because you can also be evidence by giving an eitzah, which is verbal, which is ein by ma'isa. Right? The only time you get malchus if the only way or ways, yeah, to transgress this particular love involve actions, being proactive. Mikol makom le'yadati, keeping the mavur b'yavamis to b'chol ta'ar kula, and mikra yotzim v'dei pshuta. So that wouldn't be a right. If the fact that we call a lav shem b'ma'isa doesn't necessarily prove that the pashut pshat in the pasuk of putting a stone in front of a blind man is excluded. Yeah, that doesn't prove anything. But what I do have a kasha is this: the b'chol ta'ar kula and mikra yotzim v'dei pshuta. Chutz me'apasuk v'haya b'char. והכוונה כוסף הרמב"ן, דגם, דהיינו, גם פשוטי נדרש, אף שכמה דברים נרמזו. Torah is part of this. Pshat, Remesh, Drus, Soid. So the Ramban that says that even if Chazal have a lot of different interpretations, Beremes, Bedrush, Besoid, over what a particular, the meaning of a pasuk is, and the Pshat and the pasuk is also there. Chutz ma pasuk zed dakrim pshuta legamri. Im kain, kan over here. Nehida nirmez bayemes, even though the remez of the psukim is also true. That if you give a person a bad eitzah, that's a summa bedavar. He's blind in this thing. That if you cause another person to sin, we proved before, even if it's bemazed, it's still called a summa bedavar. You're still blind about this thing. If you really had clarity of vision, you wouldn't be doing this avera, even though you know exactly what you're doing. You're still blind. So like akusim tzdukim yimach shemam. Not like the Kusim and Tzdukim. The Kusim and Tzdukim took a look at this pasuk. I said, what are you talking about? Building castles in air, giving people bad eitzes, metaphors, symbols, giving people bad eitzes, causing others to sin. The Torah is prohibiting putting stumbling blocks before the blind, and that's all the Torah is prohibiting. Right? That's what the Tzdukim say. We don't say like the Tzdukim, because we're not limiting it to that. Right? But to say that the Pashup Shad is excluded, the klal is and mikra yotzim v'dei pshuta. So he doesn't understand the Rambam, doesn't understand the Chinuch. How could they leave this version of the Aveira out? Mikol mokum din zeh gam emes, the osur lach shaliva b'derech. I think that it's avad emes, that it's osur, and it's osur from this pasuk. You'd be over on this lav if you did it. V'lo yadati milalon, t'zeh mefurish she'ena b'klal lav. I don't know where they got it, the Rambam and the Chinuch, that what's mafurish, what's explicit in the pasuk, is all of a sudden not in the lav. Now, what I don't understand is what he brings the only exception to the rule, yeah, is b'char. And what I'm to ayin ta'achas ayin and yad ta'achas yad. Ayin ta'achas ayin and yad ta'achas yad does not mean kipshuta. It cannot mean. It never means kipshuta. Right? So I don't know what.
Over there's another pasuk that says if somebody is supposed to be killed, you're not allowed to redeem. But in all other cases, you are allowed to redeem.
Like tikhu kaifer l'nefesh retzayich.
Right. And from this, partly from this, you understand. It's also actually really Torah Shabbat Peh.
Right.
That in all cases you can redeem it, and not only, and you're supposed to redeem it actually.
Fine.
And in fact, some of the examples you give in Mishpatim.
Right.
Are cases where you can't do the same thing to redeem. In other words, you have an Eved has no money.
Right.
He just has to go free.
Right.
Or the case where
he has no ability to acquire money, you mean?
Right.
The Eved is yaitz b'sheinu v'ayin.
So he has to go free.
Okay, so listen, I know the drush that you're talking about. So the corollary to that would be to say, yeah, that in some cases, ayin tachas ayin will mean you pay for the worth of an eye, and in some places we talk a blind your eye, right? That would be corollary to what he's trying to say. That yes, lifnei iver includes giving a person a bad eitzah, but it also includes, putting a banana peel on the floor, right? But what Chazal say is there's never an ayin tachas. Right. So then, So I don't know why he says the bechar is the only place that's whatchamacalled. That's
there's another thing.
Yeah.
So there's another thing.
And it only means the mother. Right. Yeah. Good zushtal.
The one thing is I'm not right away. It doesn't come to mind. What's this mitzvah here about the Hayya B'char? Because I have to look in the Bar to see what this is. I don't know what this is outside. The one that he cites, the example.
Can I have trouble? You got me a chumash? Let's take a look. Okay. Okay. It's talking, this is in the Parsha of Yivum, and it says, Vaya b'char asher teiled yokum al shem achav hameis, v'l yimach shmai b'Yisrael. Alright? So the Parsha Pshat is that it's a mitzvah that you have to give the first boy that's born, if the Yavam is miyavim the Yavam, he doesn't give a chalitza. He marries her, and they have a child. Yeah? So the Pashup shot is you've got to name the baby after the deceased. And that's how Chazal darshan it. What it means is that he takes his makom in the estate to the grandfather. He has the schusim of the deceased brother, and not like just of a child of the current father. So the Pashup shot is that his name should be the name of the deceased, but that's not how we darshan it. So the Ramban says that's the one and only exception to the rule.